We are not alone. You are watching Contact TV with your hosts, Leslie Mitchell-Clark
and Wes Roberts,
exploring ufology, metaphysics, and beyond with the world's foremost experts. Good morning, good afternoon to all of our wonderful peeps out there in Contact TV land, whether you're listening or you're actually observing our visages. We're super glad that you tuned in. And this is our special Halloween show. And this is something we always do. We've had some amazing people on the show. We've had an Irish wizard talking about Samhain and the ancient peoples. We've had author Laurie Jacobson talking about haunted Hollywood. We've had all kinds of great stuff. And I think we are really going to luck out today because we have an absolutely amazing guest who's going to talk about all kinds of appropriate and fascinating things that we want to talk about. So just real briefly, we are welcoming A.B. Neely, to the show this evening. And she is a philosopher, college professor, and magician. She has been practicing esotericism for almost 3 decades, and those disciplines include ritual magic, Theurgy, astrology, tarot from Western esotericism, and other divinatory practices, as well as meditation and Vajrayana practices from the Buddhist tradition. And she's continuing delving into different traditions to find the common tools to be used in the development of the self. And also, Anna is the founder of Heka Interdisciplinary Center for the Research of Esotericism in 2021. And it's our great pleasure to welcome our good friend, Anna Neely. Thank you, Anna, for being with us today. We're so pleased to see you.
Welcome. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. I mean, it's wonderful. I have seen so many of your shows, and I am your friend.
That's right. So here we are all together. And of course, this is our Halloween program. It also takes place on the New Year celebration for all the Celtic peoples from Cornwall to Normandy. This is Celtic New Year, known as Samhain. And I was actually wondering about if there is a fall New Year's tradition of any sort in Spain, in your homeland.
Yeah, there is not a New Year tradition, but there is a Feast of the Dead. It's different from Mexico, but on November 1, everybody goes to the cemeteries to visit the loved ones, and we buy flowers for them. So it's the day in which we connect with and it's a holiday in Spain.
So would you say that the Spanish holiday, your version of Dia de los Muertos, was informed on the Mexican people and the way they celebrate it, which is not dissimilar, but it has those really Aztec-y pagan traditions all mixed in. So it's or as we as Catholics just call All Souls Day or All Saints Day. But well, that is fascinating. And so now, Wes, tell me a little bit about what we wanted to delve into today, maybe, because Anna has so many directions she goes in and so much information. And what are you dying to ask her? How about that?
Well, I've sort of been trained and brought up in Western esotericism, Western magic, and it's not the only game in town. So one of the questions we need to ask Anna, I feel, is, what is, in her view, Western esotericism? Maybe what are its failings, and maybe what are its strengths?
I'd like to know that too.
Well, the best thing we need to understand what Western esotericism is we need to understand that wisdom is in everywhere. The wisdom of how to become more than when we are. So that wisdom traveled through the world in the ancient times. It traveled from the northern Europe to South Europe. It traveled from India to Tibet. It traveled from Tibet back to India, and then had traveled to USA, and it traveled from Egypt to Greece. And in Greece, in Egypt and Greece, it was the wisdom tradition that we call the basics of the wisdom tradition that we call Western esotericism. It developed through the Arab War. Turkey and all the Turkish empire, they kept the knowledge alive because the Christians tried to erase it. They burn a lot of the wisdom from the ancient tradition. And then also the Muslims, they were like, every time somebody was very fanatic about their one God religion, they would burn the libraries. So that happened many times. Alexandria Library was burned a few times. And so the problem is, in the Western world, the knowledge has not been kept alive for generations and generations. We don't have that lack. Like in China, there are generations of Taoism that come from the 10th century. They are written there in Tibet, the same. In the Western world, we have the wisdom arises, and then somebody picks a book that finds from Greece, or somebody picks a book that finds from another place, and they connect. And they start to receive the wisdom that we all have, that is the heritage of human beings.
So go ahead, Anna.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
So I was just going to maybe point out that what's interesting, I know we've talked about this ourselves, is that the information, we've been reset as humanoids several times because of catastrophes, not always caused by things we did or didn't do, or what the Anunnaki did or didn't do. So we have experienced retrograde civilization, and much of, as you say, that could have been preserved has not been preserved. But yet, one does wonder, as you said, about, is all the information just in the grid? If we reach a certain level of awareness, can we not plug into the Akashic records?
That's a very good question. And yes, you can. That's the good news. The bad news, you need to be a very accomplished magician to do it well. Because your ego can be in the way. And you can interpret like, oh my God, I am a superwoman. I can do anything. I am invincible. And then you go out and a car crashes you, and it's over. So what the thing is, Western esotericism has a characteristic that doesn't have so much in the Eastern world. That is because we have to figure it out by ourselves. There are many people who are directly connected to what you call the Akasha record, or the tools or the entities that are there to teach you. So periodically, every 5 years, every year, every 10 years, somebody connects with an entity and they come with a new book or some information that changes the way we see the world. And there are many different examples of that. While in the East, because they have kept the lineages, then you are recognized by another person who is there, and some people have this ability to enter into the Akasha records and create new things, but many people just follow the rules that they have learned. So in the Western esotericism, there is, some schools of magic, they make it very easy for you, but most of the time it's dangerous. Not because, because many of the things you try, they have not been tested to be safe.
I see. I see. And as a practitioner, and this is a question actually for both yourself and Wes, as a practitioner of magic, whatever form or definition that takes, is it necessary to work with a group? I hate to use the old-fashioned word coven, or a group of like-minded people, um, or do you practice as a solitary person?
Well, the tradition I follow is one of solitary practitioner. You are on your own, and you do what you can, and you study different traditions, and you try them, and then extract what's good for you. But there are groups you can join, and I belong to some groups, and that helps you to have a better perspective, to learn. And in the Western esotericism, what the kind of relationship you establish with other people is that of friendship.
Mm-hmm.
So they give you some tips, you give them some tips, and that's how we all work together and grow. But most of the time, the work is solitary.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I would echo too. That the work is work done alone. If you belong to any groups, or if you're associated, if you know other people and other systems, they're going to have some gems that you can borrow or use.
Mm-hmm.
And they will have added to the racial memory of all this, if you will, so that we can tap into it. So we might do it better, faster, stronger, because it's been around for eons or centuries and centuries. But generally, your accomplishments are your own, I think.
I see. So the power of three, the Tesla physics equation, is that something that you ever utilize for a special purpose?
Anna, you can speak to that.
Well, I mean, it depends. Like you can do a working on your own, or you can join with other people. If there are more people, probably will be more powerful to affect the exterior.
Mm-hmm.
But to change yourself, you don't need anybody else.
Right, exactly. That would be the point then, because you are really talking about transformative aspects here, and the magical aspects of those transformations that are internal, and whereas, well, it might be helpful, and I'd love to ask both of you this, just for our listeners, to kind of maybe categorize the different types of magic that people are practicing. I mean, I know it's not like television. I know there aren't kids in basements all over the Midwest with, sacrificing animals, or I hope not. But what are the different categories of, why don't I just call it, practical magic?
Well, I mean, there are like one big different category that is white magic and black magic. And the white magic works with archetypes that are very solid. Mm-hmm. So it's very good to start, because it helps you to develop especially if you are unstable, psychically unstable, working with white magic is safer. Because you work with God, you work with angels. Angels can be first, but that's another. It's not like this beautiful being and kind being. Some of the angels are like that, but not all of them. Mm-hmm. But they are. It's if you were with the Kabbalah, for example, that is one kind of magic that comes from the Golden Dawn. And the Kabbalah that was developed in Toledo in the 13th century in Spain. If you work with that, it's gonna help you to develop a balanced psyche. But black magic and white magic has this idea of service. You are in service of the humanity, of the world, of the God you are connected with. Black magic is not about doing bad things. It's about putting yourself in the center of your work. Okay. And working with entities that are dark. That means that they are moon entities. They are connected with darkness. Darkness is it's like emptiness. Mm-hmm. Is the void that is full of possibilities. But because it's full of possibilities, it is chaotic. So it's much more strong transformation, and it comes from the black magic comes from the east, comes from the Vajrayana practice of India and Tibet, the left-hand path. The idea was we are going to do everything we can to be enlightened. And if we have to go against society rules, we will do it. So, for example, one of the practices that they had in the East for Indians who were vegetarian, in the East, they would eat meat in their practices because that was totally disgusting for them. So that would kill the ego.
I
so
see.
that's a left-hand practice from the East. In the West, the idea is to work with things that can be scary, and to achieve power and development of the self, and most of the time that also eliminates the ego and develops a personality that is not hypocritical, because when you accept your shadow, let's talk about the Jungian categories. When you accept your shadow, you don't have to pretend to be somebody who you are not. So working with black magic helps the integration of the personality. Working with white magic helps to balance and to stabilize. So for me, the best magic is that in certain periods you work with one, and in certain periods you work with the other, because it helps to balance, to integrate, and also we are not always the same. Sometimes we need something nice. We need something that elevates our spirit to see the light. Sometimes we need to go deep into the darkness of our own souls to heal them.
Yes, that makes an awful lot of sense. And Wes, would you agree with that? Are there any, alchemists? Is there anything going on as far as transformative magic? Is that a word or expression?
Oh, yeah, it's you might just say it's operational magic instead of ceremonial, but alchemists, the real deal, they're around, they exist. And I guess the thing with alchemists is their ultimate transformation was them, not base metal. That was a ruse. That was a red herring. They turned brass or copper into gold. Big deal. They're not interested in gold. They're interested in transforming themselves. The only other thing I'd say about black magic is, to me, it seems more direct, and it's on you. Success or failure is on you. You cast your little spell, and you generally get what you need, which might not be what you want.
So working a spell in a craft that would be described as black magic would, as Anna said, it's more about you as the center. So it's by its nature more selfish?
It's more selfish in that the universe revolves around you, but selfless in that you excise, as Anna said, you excise your ego out of it if you get good at it. But selfish in terms of self-evolution. So, it's a different kind of self. So self-evolution, we've only got one kick at the can as our current selves. So let's see what we can do with it in our lifetime.
Excellent. Well, and so Anna, you mentioned something very interesting. Because you are from, we were talking about the suppression of sacred information, of esoteric information, and certainly you come from a part of the world that has been involved in huge cultural shifts. In Spain, how long was the golden era of 500 years of the Muslim rule in Spain? Was it that long?
It depends on the place, because
significant.
It was many, but basically what the golden era was like now. The idea was that there is only one government, that is the Muslim one, and then the others can live their way. Today, the only government is science and democracy, and all the others can live their way. So it was wonderful because it allowed to, and the many of the writings from Greece and Egypt were kept, and they work. Many of the mystics there were wonderful mystics. They are like Maimonides or
Maimonides, yes, right.
Maimonides, yeah, and any others like Avicenna. I'm not sure how to say it in English, but Avicenna was a very, very important Spanish Arab. Maimonides was Jews. And Christian also. So there was a lot of mysticism involved, and part of the West Kabbalah, the basics of Kabbalah were written in Spain from the unknown authors, because they were attributed to known authors, but they were not really from those authors. So we have a lot of description of the tree of life, and also there is Kabbalah involved with the qliphos, that are that is like the tree of darkness or something like that. You could call it. Is like a tree that was created by God and was so bad that he destroyed the head, and it's full of demons. So when we take this in a psychological way, and that's a very important point when you work with the dark qliphos, or when you work with black magic, it's better to take a psychological standpoint. Like the demons I'm seeing are a part of me, because otherwise you can end up with a fragmented personality, and that's the only. But that can happen also with white magic. You can, become very, very. I mean, if you are unstable psychologically, that can be dangerous. I mean, I have met people just with the meditation of just being looking into the emptiness, they have had crisis. So that's something that happens.
So what we would take away from that really is all of these esoteric studies are disciplines, and if you are unstable mentally for whatever reason, this may not be the best practice for you. Yes. There are other integrative things that you should probably do first before exploring these arcane matters.
Yes, so. and one of the other thing I want to be very clear, because we have this background of a God that knows everything and tells you what to do, and you should follow that God. In all the religions of the book, Jewish tradition, Christian tradition, Muslim tradition, we have a God that say you have to do this, and you do it. Some people, when they do magic, they encounter entities that are not good for them, and still they follow their lead.
Oh, yeah.
So in this, you have to apply the same criteria as when you know and when you meet a new person. So you meet somebody new, you see what they do, and if they have advice for you, is that advice sensible? Is it common sense? Is that something that is going to help me? Or is he or she saying something that is true, or is saying something that is a total fantasy? So you evaluate all of that, and you get to a point in which you say, okay, I don't want to have this person as a friend, because what he or she is saying is not something I like, or this person is a person I can trust, and I can follow what he or she says. So the same kind of common sense has to be applied to inner entities, because sometimes we encounter parts of ourselves. I mean, you can understand it in a psychological way or in something external, whatever works for you, but because we really don't know.
Well, we don't. I mean, I always think it's healthier to integrate experiences, and I think that's the probably the most proper path to take most of the time.
Exactly.
You don't want people having dissociative episodes, and they can have them when they're in an altered state. They can have them, especially if there is a very strong or convincing entity that they've been communicating with. And I think there are interdimensional entities. I think the idea of the jinn, smokeless fire, I think these are just another phylum of being that are in fact of a different type of matter, and they love to mess around with us. I actually think, and especially after doing it, I'd be interested in both of your opinions too. After doing a number of haunted investigations, so-called haunted investigations, my feeling is that most of what we see is residual energy, residual things that we can pick up as being sensitive people, and in some cases even look at it like it's a movie, but it's residual. I think it's not uncommon for there to be a trickster being in a so-called haunt that is assuming different identities and just having a grand old time, just effing with people and scaring them. And that's why none of this Christian iconography is going to work, if I may say so, or it's going to have limited success. But I think a lot of the time I think the actual a kind of an intelligent haunt where an individual is stuck is far less common than we think. Thank goodness. What do you guys think about that? You've both done plenty of investigations.
So go ahead, Anna, because this is going to tie into something we want to talk about with you anyways. I mean, you have your own association or organization. You wanted to talk about magic today, and people are watching this, and it's the eve of Halloween almost. So let's let you go first.
Well, I mean, I'm not an expert on haunted houses or something like that. I think that, I mean, the magicians I know normally they don't dwell into those things, like because you don't know what is there and why it's there. But if you are really convinced that you can deal with that and you have a lot of magical energy, maybe you can deal with that or not. So, but that's independently of the kind of. I mean, if you can have the issue when you work with an entity is it can be two kind of things. It can be an entity that comes from a different culture than the culture, and what you said, the Christian things are not going to help, or maybe it's something that doesn't really have any personality. It just goes around, and then if you believe in the Christian symbols, then they are going to work.
Yeah.
So the issue with those things is like you really have to have a call for doing that, because they can be dangerous. Like I have never done it, so I don't know.
I love it.
I do too. My gosh.
I absolutely love it, and I go in surrounded by the white light, and I think, the whole, again, it depends on your goal. Like I know that, when I go, I'm not going to have a sensational experience of seeing books fly off the shelf or whatever. The goal is spirit release or energy release. If that's the situation, I want to locate anybody who's stuck and bring them across. That is one of the most gratifying things as a being, I think, that we can experience.
And I want to speak to Leslie, your earlier comment about residue. Absolutely, a lot of it's residue. It's replay. It's a recording. Some of it. It's attached to the very fabric of the place or a piece of furniture. But sometimes it's not residue, right? And sometimes you're going to have to say to yourself, how do I deal with this? Colin Wilson wrote an outstandingly good book just called Poltergeist. And he would verify what you just said, that there's also spirits that are impersonators. That, hey, I'm this terrible thing, I'm this great thing. And so they want to go and take your bedclothes off, or they want to throw a picture down, and they just want attention. And I guess one of the things is attention, whether good ghost, bad ghost. There is a need for attention that I'm seeing.
And a need for filling up on energy too, because
Yeah.
people become fearful. They just lap that energy right up. But so even discarnate beings that are trapped can also pretend to be other beings. It's a very complex. A haunt is very complex, and I'm sure you both remember we had on the show Dr. Barry Taff, who's like ground zero of paranormal investigators. He was one of the founders of the psychical research department at UCLA, I believe, and he really was of the opinion that poltergeist activity, and now again we're talking about stuff flying around, drawers opening, that was largely to do with some kind of trapped psychokinetic energy, and that it largely, these really intense manifestations usually happen when there were teenagers in the house. So there is a real psychokinetic factor to it, and that makes a lot of sense to me.
Oh, well, to me too. And Anna, I wanted to ask you a question, but you go first because I have a connected question that I know you've been waiting to speak, and it's your interview. You go first.
That's okay. So there is. I mean, you can release energy going to these things, and I really think that the people who does it is wonderful, and I really think it's a great job. There is another way to release energy and to work with the ghost. That is to work with the dark archetypes of humanity. And that's a work that was developed first. It was talked about very, very, very shortly by Aleister Crowley. Then Kenneth Grant developed it, and then finally Linda Falorio. And there are other people out there who are working on that, and it's one of my work. The idea is to go into the cliffs, the dark parts of the tree of life, and to deal with the dark archetypes. So you don't fight them, you just fall into them and accept them. And by accepting them, you are healing yourself, and you are healing part of the humanity charge with those. And it's a very interesting working, and it includes all kind of dealing with dark entities and with dark archetypes. Like for example, the feeling that the life has no sense. You go into one of the tunnels of Set, and then there you have to face your own lack of meaning in your life. And you have to go through it, and then once you realize that the meaning is zero, you laugh at it and accept it. So there is no meaning, so you can play. So it's not about fighting them, it's about integrating them. And by every person that integrates a part of themselves, they are helping humanity to change the pattern. So,
fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Well, then, can you talk, because we're talking about hauntings, ghosts, energy, dark and light. Some ghosts are ghosts, and that fits into the "is there a life after death" question. And so, some ghosts are ghosts. So, what's your opinion on that? We're on the eve of a spooky time right now.
Yes. So, I was very scared of dying when I was a child because I was very sick, and my family thought I was going to die. So it was. Even when they didn't tell me, it seeped. So I was really, really scared about, am I going to die? And I have had ghost experiences, and I think there is something there. And definitely, when my father died, and he died very, very in a very difficult situation with cancer, with a lot of pain. And after he died, the moment he died, I was out of the room. I came back. I was alone with him. And suddenly I felt such an energy of relief and happiness and light, and that permeated all the room, including myself. And that was such a surprise. And I knew it was my father that was happy that everything had ended and he was in peace and he had done what he had to do. But like the issue with the fear of death is that no matter how many proofs you see that there is life after death, until you don't experience it in a way that really seeps into your psyche, you are still scared. And the thing with working with esotericism is that the most you work with it, the most you connect with other entities, the most you do the practices, like, for example, a simple meditation that is the meditation of death. This is like you put the hand like this, and your
Elbow.
elbow, thank you, elbow on the table, and you just realize you are dead. That's it. And you stay there for as many minutes as you can. And this is a great, wonderful meditation for Halloween. And you just, accept that you are dead. The first times I did that, I was so scared and nervous. I didn't like it because I had this fear of death.
Mm-hmm.
But after a while, suddenly one day it was like, oh, I feel relieved. I don't have to hurry around anymore. I don't have to do anything. And that was one of the key points. The other key points is when you do a lot of esotericism, you realize that you are more than your body. And that's a phrase from Robert Monroe. You are more than your physical body. So you really see that there is much more than this physical body to it, and that you are that this is just a virtual reality. This is just something, a kind of complex place that we have created where to be,
Mm-hmm.
but that is not the end. It's the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Like what is behind that, it's amazing. And the best you can do here, I think the more complex and rich is going to be the experience after death. And when you look at all the traditions, you see that all the wisdom traditions have ways to do the passing through the death that enriches that experience and allows you to not lose so much, because you can get confused when you are dead. So what happened to me is that it was not a moment. But after years of doing this kind of practices, suddenly I looked at myself and I realized I was no longer scared of dying.
Mm-hmm.
My fear of death had disappeared. And I cannot point to a moment in which that happened, but it was just, I have so much certainty that this is just a video game.
Mm-hmm.
This is a video game, and the most we work, the most difficult it becomes. And the most accomplished you were before coming here, the more difficult it's going to be your life here, because you can't deal with it. Although at the beginning you are totally lost.
Mm-hmm.
So when you really connect with other entities and they guide you and they help you to develop the powers that you are able to have, you start to live here, but also you start to live in the other life. And you start to be prepared and to get ready for death, because death is what gives meaning to life, and it's a part of life. And I would recommend to an episode of the Netflix series Sandman, that where death picks up the people who are dying. It's really, really beautiful. I think it's the 5th episode in the series.
Sandman, correct?
The Sandman.
Oh,
yeah.
yes. Oh, wonderful.
It's a new show from Netflix. So it's very beautiful, and I think that we are scared of death because we think this is all it is, but none of the phenomena I have lived, and I'm not talking about things I have read, but all the strange phenomena I have lived, I have created with my magic, they cannot be explained by the materialistic worldview.
Yeah.
And I am a philosopher, and my specialty is philosophy of science. So it's not like, I don't know anything about science. It's just that The science for me is research. And if you research these phenomena, you cannot explain them with a worldview of materialism. This is the body, there is nothing else, because nothing works.
Yeah.
Nothing works. So if there is more than this, then death is just it's just the beginning.
Indeed, that's true. And I think, Anna, in the era of the real-time mapping of the brain, at least some of the things that we've been talking about are now, in a sense, provable, because we know what is happening, and it's not directly connected to anything other than the intelligence living out external to the physical brain. So I think we're going to see in even scientifically minded people who are really into the idea of proof are going to see some amazing things over the next little while. And
in fact, it's happening. That is happening now.
Mm-hmm.
There is a group that is very active. I can send you the link later, and you can post it. That has two very important books where they really connected a team of scientists, psychologists, parapsychologists, philosophers, and they really demonstrate that the brain is not the self.
No.
That the consciousness is not in the brain, that there is no way, that there is no way. And an author that is really good at this is Tim Ruddin.
Mm-hmm.
He has written a book that is called Magic, Real Magic,
Mm-hmm.
where he puts all kind of proof that magic is real, that has been explored with parapsychology.
Mm-hmm.
They just didn't connect. Oh, what we are studying in parapsychology is magic.
Yeah. Well, we are here we can manifest things. And in the third density, it can be frustrating because it's slow compared to, when we operate in lighter matter. But one of my feelings is in the area of extraterrestrial contact. There are humans living here who are living integrated, living in their dense reality, but yet have a completely different life where they are helping and assisting, usually on some kind of space station or in some kind of amazing situation with other beings who are also, one assumes, vibrating at a lighter level. So what is the afterlife? I think it's a place where many beings can just zip in and out, and it doesn't have to do with the death of a meat suit, as it were. So fascinating. Wes, do you have something? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Anna.
Yes, and when you talk about the aliens and the contact with the aliens, I mean, when we contact entities, we don't know what they are. We know that all the traditions say that, for example, the Egyptian gods came from Sirius, the Greek gods came from Mars. So, like, in all of them, they were aliens. And so it's just a change of names that obscure the vision, that we are in contact with other entities that are not from here. And when you do Western esotericism, you enter into contact with these entities that changes you. And there can be like, oh, that's all psychology, but it's not all psychology, because the important thing is that the moment you change, everything changes. The environment changes, the world that is around, the people you are with. So every change that happens into your psyche creates permanent changes in the world.
I agree 1,000%. And, in the work that we all do, I like as educators, as teachers, as clinicians, whatever we are doing, we are changing the world one person at a time. We are, sometimes by more than one person, but that is how change is intended to happen. I think in such a what's the word? Such a hodgepodge of an experience that we have here on planet Earth with the 5 fingers of man. And as you were just talking about, They all came in with different hierarchies. They may all be the same people, the Nordic gods, the Hyperboreans, same personality trait, same thing. This is something that that can draw us together as people, whereas monotheism seems to tear us apart.
Mm-hmm. Well said. Thank you for that. That's an excellent comment on this. Our guest had sent us an idea of, let's say, a fairly straightforward piece of magic, a ritual.
Ooh.
A spell. Call it what you will. And because we're at the eve of Halloween here, there's no better time than now to pick up your spell book and do something. So maybe Anna, you can even simplify more what you sent us into more succinct steps.
Yeah. So basically what you have to do, this is a Theurgy practice. So Theurgy is very, very important in magic. I find that is the key, because the moment you connect with other entity, you are able to develop the powers of that entity. So this can be used for anything. Like, for example, if you want to do an exam and you want to study and you want to be very focused, you could invoke Athena from Greece, or Thoth from Egypt, or one of those. So this is a very simple thing. You just create a protection circle if you want, and once you have the protection circle or not, that's up to you, because depending on your tradition, you like that or not. Then you just visualize in front of you the entity and you invite her or him to your working. And then you imagine it dissolves into you, and you are him or her. And when you are him or her, you can just make a statement. I am strong, or I am intelligent, or I do great exams, or whatever. And after that, you give thanks to the entity that you invoked. And at the end, you say, so it is done.
So that's a simple 5 or 6 steps that a person could follow, right? That's amazing. So that's magic.
That's totally magic. It can be used for anything. I had a friend who used this with the Nordic gods before going to the gym. And he was a guy who was not very physically fit, but he was able to, after a few months doing that and the training, he was able to lift huge weights that the people who were like very, very physically fit would look at him and say, how can this guy do this? So it has many, many different approaches. And the most important thing with Theurgy is that you start to not be so constrained by your ego limits, because your ego tells you, oh, you are not intelligent, or you are not able to do exercise, or you are not able to do this or that. And then when you are a god of a goddess, you can do it. And we are all gods and goddesses. That was the basic initiatory truth that we have. Like in the Greece, what's his name? Well, there is a Greek philosopher that was previous Democritus, I think, but I'm not sure. He says that we are gods that were tricked by Aphrodite, and she made us fall asleep. And this life is the sleep of the gods. So we are asleep, and the more you work in esotericism, the more you wake up to your real power.
And in a way, that's almost a beautiful metaphor for being absorbed in the dense physicality of this world.
Yes.
And again, we have the theme of the fallen angels. I mean, this theme reoccurs again and again and again of spirits and spirit-based beings becoming addicted to physical experience. Shall we say? This is a recurring theme. That's us. That's us.
And that's the reason I started with Heka, the International Center for the Research of Esotericism. It's called Heka because Heka is the principle and the goddess from ancient Egypt. That means magic, but it also means the same. It was what links people, what links us to the world. And I think that with this ecological crisis, we need to start to connect with each other and with the world. And magic is a wonderful way. Like there are branches of magic, and the Golden Dawn is very well developed that helps you to connect with the elementals that are beyond the water, the earth, the fire, and it's amazing. And you develop such a sacred vision of the world that you would not be able to cut a tree or doing harm to the water. But
so
but
true.
So this materialistic worldview we have is taking us into disaster. We need to start accepting other worldview that can be much more beneficial for us as humans. Worldviews are not truth; they are maps.
Good.
They are maps for the past. Yeah. So the map of materialism has helped us to develop wonderful things, but right now we need to make it wider and realize that there are other entities out there. I mean, the idea that trees communicate with each other was totally rejected at the beginning. And now it's like, okay, yeah, it's true. So
yep. I've heard them. I've heard them in the sequoias up in Northern California. I have heard those low 10-cycle sounds that trees make to each other. And you know me, for years I go out, and before I ever garden, I do something not unlike what you described, and I get the cooperation of the elementals that are right there in my garden. You don't have to go very far to put any of these wonderful things into practice, because it is a magnificent universe. There's creation everywhere. And, you know, I believe it's a universe of free will. I don't believe in punishment and heaven and hell in that way. I believe these are self-constructed things that happen.
So you do magic. You do respectful magic, actually, helpful magic.
Oh, I would hope.
Yeah,
I would hope.
Yes, and it's wonderful. So what I am putting out there with Heka Ikre right now is a newsletter. And if people wants to subscribe in that newsletter, I have other magicians and witches who are collaborators, and they write wonderful articles about magic, about different traditions, and it's an honor for me to be with them.
How can they find you, Anna? How can they find out about this?
So I have sent you the link. Maybe you can post it in the comments of the video.
We will do. And we just want to thank you so much for joining us, Anna, and such an uplifting talk, because, you know, I love it when we are taking responsibility, when we are taking care of ourselves, and therefore uplifting the vibration of everything. And whatever you're doing, I love the responsibility aspect of it. And it's tremendously appealing. I know that it's helping everything, and your organization as well. So we're very excited that you were here to be able to talk about it. And next time you come back, I'd love to talk about the tarot, the Egyptian tarot, and astrology, and some of your other arcane esotericism courses.
Yeah, our guest is involved in a lot of things, and she has a long history. So, what timing? Anyways, this is Halloween. Go do magic, everyone. Don't worry. It's not offensive. Magic is for all. And our guest can certainly illuminate us when it comes to the tarot and astrology, something I could never do. So that'll be a good show.
Soon, I hope.
All right. I will be happy to be back. Thank you so much.
Magnificent. Thank you so much, Anna B. Neely. Thank you. Thank you, Wes, as always. And of course, we have to have our famous tagline. Remember, we are not, alone.
alone.
Good night from Contact TV. We hope to see you all very soon. Bye for now.
Everyone.
Bye.
Thank you for watching Contact TV.
We would like to thank our generous sponsors, Lightwork Hypnosis, UFOria and the UFOria Chronicles, Earth Mystery News, Conspiracy Culture Books, MUFON Canada, Free Experiencers, the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters, and Variety Store Productions.
For guest booking information, please email Wes Roberts at producer@contacttv.ca. And don't forget to join us on Facebook and Twitter.